All right, welcome back to the Copywriters podcast with your host, the world's greatest copywriting coach, David Garfinkel, and we've got a little bit of a twist to the show today. David, how are you doing, and what do we got going on?
Well, I'm doing great, Nathan, and you're right, we do. I hope we don't have an "Oh, Henry" ending. You'll see what I mean. Our guest today is Adam Gilad, and you won't believe this, but it's true. He's a prolific entrepreneur, author, speaker, film producer, like Hollywood film producer, and global teacher. He's also, and this is why he's here, a skilled copywriter, and that's how he's made a lot of his ventures grow. For example, the Higher Game and the Bold Life Brotherhood. He's co-founder of this Business in a Box curriculum of transformational game evenings and weekends that build visibility, revenue, community, and customer bases. But wait, there's more. Adam is also a former co-founder and programming director of National Lampoon Radio and an Emmy-nominated executive producer. His award-winning films have appeared on USA Networks, Lifetime, and TNT, and he has written for Disney, CBS, ABC, and elsewhere. So he's a screenwriter, too. Over the last 10 years, he has built a dating, personal development, and coaching business that has reached hundreds of thousands of people. And he's used copywriting for that, too. So are you starting to see this connection, copywriting and screenwriting and copywriting? He's going to talk about that. He's also got a strong background as a creativity and ideation consultant for major companies. Today, he's going to talk about, among other things, an amazing double transformation he's gone through personally, from screenwriter to copywriter, and then, surprise, back to screenwriter with some turbochargers attached to his brain and fingers. So, not only that, I've got some high-powered information to speed you through your own copywriting journey in the safe lane, and it's this: copy is powerful. You're responsible for how you use what you hear on this podcast, but most of the time, common sense is all you need. If you make extreme claims, and or if you're writing copy in highly regulated industries like health and finance and business opportunity, you may want to get a legal review after you write and before you start using your copy. My larger clients do this all the time. So Adam, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so you want to start somewhere as to what it was like being a screenwriter, or what it is like being a screenwriter before copywriting,
Sure.
And then take us, through your journey, similarities, surprises, aha moments, all those things.
Want to hear my biggest mistake?
Sure.
It's a David Garfinkel moment.
Oh, great.
So no, it is great. It shows I should have listened to you. So thank you, first of all. So writing has always been music to me for whatever reason. My mother was a great lover of writing, and as a child, I would go to creative writing summer camp, if you believe that exists.
Wow.
And I loved writing. It's always been, like I said, music, the musicality of language. And I've always been a writer, edited the school paper, all that kind of stuff. Growing up, and then of course I wanted to write film and fiction, and ended up going to graduate school, taught poetry, taught writing up at Stanford. I taught some very luminaries, people who have gone on to run gigantic multi-billion-dollar companies. I taught them writing. Wow. I should have stayed with them, but so language has always been like I said, music, and I became a screenwriter. I sold my first script from grad school and worked for all those companies and did all those things. And it was super fun. And I'll talk about some commonalities. And then I was very successful in the genre of cable movies and TV movies. And then it died. Like the whole business died suddenly because reality TV came in and they just cut their departments. So CBS, NBC, ABC, they stopped making them. So I lost about $1 million contracts. I had 2 little kids, brand new big house, and 0 income at 39. And that was like, I had, it's not easy in Hollywood to move from one genre to another. So yeah. I wrote a Seinfeld spec. ICM, which is one of the big agencies, called us in and said, "This is the funniest thing I've ever read." And then we came in and go, "You're too old." I was 37. "You're too old. I can't sell you to a show." So that was, so I was, imagine how I felt. And so I ended up in therapy because my then wife said, instead of hitting your head on the wall at 3 a.m, maybe you should see someone. And I said, maybe I should. And I remember sitting there and he said, well, what else can you do? And I said, nothing. I have no skills. And he goes, what else can you do? And I said, nothing. I can write dialogue. I can plot. I can write a show. I can write a drama. I can write a comedy. And he goes, do you think anyone might value that? And I literally said, I have no idea. I'd never thought that far. And went up to a university, one of those job fairs, right? Dyed my hair a little bit. I was 40, and everyone said, wow, you're way overqualified. I went to all the advertising and PR companies that were up there at Stanford. And I'm like, I have no qualifications. I can write dialogue. And they didn't want me. So imagine what it felt like, midlife, to be going, it
must have felt like shit.
It's horrible. I didn't think I had a skill.
Yeah.
And then I ran into David Garfinkel. And I don't know if you remember this, because we haven't discussed this, but I started, this is kind of funny. I started going to entrepreneur lunches.
Was this at the JCC in San Francisco?
No, this was
before that?
Harvecker event down here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I do remember that.
So what happened was, and it ties into my career, I got divorced at the same time. Big surprise. And had no idea how to date because I was married. So I was 23. And so I started going to networking meetings, hoping I can network with somebody with breasts, basically, because I was embarrassed to date. I didn't know what dating was. And I still felt married. I had 2 kids and my whole adult life had been married. So it felt weird to even go out. So that was kind of the middle ground, was going to a networking meeting. Yeah. And I fell in with this guy. It was a Tony Robbins guy, and he invited me to this lunch. And the lunch led to these solopreneur, entrepreneur meetings. This is around 2002, 3. Melanie Strick, I'm sure and people like that. And I'm like, wow, this is really interesting. You could create your own business. And I started going to those. And at the same time, I was teaching a writing course at my house and at university here called Spiritual Autobiography, where we used wisdom texts from around the world, both language, metaphors, and structures to have people write about their lives, how they become who they were and who they wanted to become. And so I said, I could probably, if I could teach 30 people on my deck up here in Topanga Canyon, I could probably online, wow, there's this whole new world. I could probably teach 40 people, or 3,000 people, right? So I went to my first internet marketing seminar. And this is back in the day. This is big seminar. Our Armin Moran.
Oh yeah, Armin, sure.
2004. And I sat there with my mouth agape and I kept saying to everyone, okay, what's the catch? I said, there's no gatekeeper, right? Infinite market, virtually no startup cost if you can create content, right? And I literally went around the room, what's the catch? What's the catch? And everyone said, there's no catch. You just have to do it. And I said, this is amazing, because my whole professional life was dealing with gatekeepers. So I ran into somebody, Dave Miz, who told me about, there's this huge market for dating. The guy makes $7 million a year. And by the time I did that, because of my writing skills online, I knew a lot about online dating, because I started analyzing immediately when I found out I could write to women instead of actually have to leave my house and meet them. I'm like, this is great. I'm a writer. This is fun. And I ended up being very successful running many, many profiles. I ended up on a television show, and I'll show you the marketing point, how I ended up on that, because dating is marketing, by the way. Relationship is customer service, but dating is marketing. And this is what I have to get through people's heads, both men and women. Nobody cares about if you write about yourself. It's a marketing document, an online dating profile. Yeah. So I started doing this, and I went to this event. I met you. You read some of my stuff. And I don't know if you remember this, but you introduced me to Harv Eker. And I was just barely in this business. And you said, Harv, this is the most talented natural writer I've ever met. Adam, would you like to work with him as a copywriter? And it's almost as if you said, would you like to work with him as a child rapist? Because I didn't even know what a copywriter was. I thought it was like the guy who wrote, seriously, I'm not even kidding. I thought it was like the guy who writes ads at the back of magazines or newspapers. That was what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like a super low level thing. And I was like, I'm an artist, I'm a screenwriter, and I was an idiot. Because that was probably one of the most valuable introductions and open doors ever offered me in my life. And I didn't know what a copywriter was. And I didn't know the value of copy yet, because I was new, right? I had just met you. And I thank you again, 15 years later, and berate myself for not taking that.
You're welcome. I say things take time. Sometimes people get it right away, and sometimes they need time for their process. And that's cool.
It's true. So I would say the process has been writer to screenwriter to creating my first product. It was around online dating, and that blew up really fast thanks to our friend Eben Pagan.
Oh, yeah.
And that led to coaching groups, and I hire coaches and we do events, and I run events around the world. I take guys to Italy, to Greece, to like break out. My whole brand is called the Bold Life Tribe, is to be bold and to break out of the temptation to sleep in comfort. And
So let me zero in on a point.
that's the overall.
No, it's awesome. Thank you. And it is a pretty exciting and a little scary story. So you came from what we might call the artistic side of writing, right? Poetry and fiction, screenplays, drama. And then you've at least learned to be very fluent in the commercial side of writing. What lessons did you bring from art into commerce?
Great question. I noticed I used the term music when I said writing has been music to me. Both of my kids are really accomplished musicians, and I watch that, and it's social. It's a much different world. But for me, I was a very quiet kid, and there's a music to language that falls off the tongue and affects you.
Mm-hmm.
That you can teach it, but you have to really study it. So, for example, I wrote a profile for someone. It's almost iambic pentameter. I am a man at the height of my power. You are a young beauty at the threshold of your possibilities. Right. So yeah, it has an impact. It's poetry, because what's the definition of poetry is where sound has an impact. Right. It's the thing that you can't translate. Mm-hmm. Right. Poetry is that sound has meaning. So I had a profile. One of my most successful profiles back when I was dating was, I'm no cubicle. You're no cubicle girl. I'm no cubicle guy. We're the kind of people who. And it's poetry. There's a rhythm to the language that draws you in. And notice it's marketing, right? Mm-hmm. But even before I knew about marketing, I'm savvy enough as a person to know that, I looked at all the different profiles that people had. Hi, I'm a lawyer. I've been to 27 countries. I scuba dive. I blah, blah, blah. So what? And women go on and go, hi, I love my friends. I love my family. Here's a picture of my cat. And it's like, so what? Nobody cares about you. But what women are actually saying is, my whole life is built around love. That's what they want to say. So right. I help people take what they want to say and put it in a language that the other gender actually feels, right? Let me give you one more, just an example of how poetry and dating copywriting, because a dating profile is copywriting, right?
Yeah.
So back in 2004, I ended up on a show called How to Get the Guy up in San Francisco. It was an ABC show, but it was 4 women in San Francisco looking for their guy. And there was the badass lawyer, the party girl, the innocent girl next door, and the spiritual one. And the spiritual one was on the show. I didn't know about the show, by the way. Was on the show saying, I want to find someone spiritual, but also masculine. And it's really hard in San Francisco, right? And so on ABC television, she was scrolling through profiles and came across mine. And she read it out loud. And it started like this. Ready? And again, poetry, sensitivity to sound. You are, not me, by the way, not about me. I don't write about me. I wrote about them. You are inspired and inspiring, vivacious and witty, with a great open-hearted laugh. Joy swims around you. You can't help it. That was the opening. And she looked up and she goes, I want to meet this guy. Now notice, I didn't say anything about myself. I could be a troll.
No, but that is poetry. I've never seen or heard a profile like that. Nathan, what do you think? Nathan's a poet too, and is.
Oh wow.
Well, he does rhymes. He does hip hop. Nathan.
Okay, right.
Talk to us.
Now, by the way, that's the language written for women. Now, women would do it a totally different way.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut because I'm loving every second of this.
All right. You have your right to do. You have the right to remain silent.
But I'm in a relationship, Nathan. Just so you know.
Yeah. So that's cool. But you must have moved. But I'm starting to imagine a pattern here of the rhythm and emotion transference of poetry into these profiles, and then you're selling programs, probably selling events, selling classes.
Yes.
Right?
So it's the same. Look, that's the beautiful thing. It's understanding your audience, right? It's like, I know when I wrote joy swims around you, you can't help it. And I get 1,500 letters from women, and I'm 5'9" and balding and in my 40s. So I know the language has power because I know my market, right? I'm not writing about myself. It's the same thing as copywriting. How can I, and I learned this from Evan Pagan once again, because he trained me. You know, if you can express someone's inner state better than they can, they will instantly trust you.
Yes.
So it's the same whenever I write.
You couldn't have picked a much better teacher. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I was lucky. I mean, he brought me into his Guru Mastermind pilot program. And
he's awesome. He really is. He's amazing.
Amazing, right? Amazing. He thinks things through. So yeah, so getting into the mindset of your customer. Like right now we have this program called the Bold Life Brotherhood, where we're training men to run men's circles, but like scripted with a point men's circles that ends in an action at the end of every, a decision to make an action, so that people align their.
It's a masculine men's circle as opposed to a few,
yes and no.
or what is it?
Well, I have a lot of experience with masculine, feminine polarity and that language. I worked with David Data for 2 years, who's a great writer as well. Holy moly! But I tend not to use that term because it gets confusing, because there's no such thing as a masculine. You've never hit your head on the masculine, right? You've never walked into the masculine.
It's a concept. Right.
Right. But the problem is that people bring different notions. When you want to talk about precision.
Different baggage.
Yeah, different baggage to words. So I try to avoid that. That's a great point. So like for that, I'm saying when I'm looking for leaders, I'm saying you're the kind of man who sees that there's an epidemic of loneliness among men in the world. You're the kind of man who sees that there's a lack of communication between the genders, and you want to participate in bridging that gap. You're the kind of man who sees that men need brotherhood. So instead of saying, hey, I've got this great thing, look at me, I've got this great program for you, I get into their hearts. And of course you have that rhythm of repetition and the rhythm of language that's, it is hypnotic, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's very similar, copywriting, to flirting and seduction and writing a really great poem. So that's I think the connection is getting into the heart as well as the mind, into the body of the listener.
Yeah, but it seems like you learned something when you started to do this, rather than just to express and for an audience to actually request or require action from people, which is what you do in copy, I think. Something shifted inside you, or you added a few cards to your deck or something?
Yeah, I got dirty. Yeah, and maybe I shouldn't talk about this, but I feel like a lot of the things that seem to work in direct marketing, fear-based writing, scarcity writing, I got into all that, never loved it. It's not my nature. And that's something I had to wrestle with over the years, because I'm basically an inspiration-based person.
Right.
I kind of teach by inspiring. It's how I operate. It's just, that's how I live. If I'm not inspired, I feel empty. And so my natural tendency is to want to inspire people into buying as a copywriter rather than scaring them into them.
Right. But there is another style of copy which Facebook is almost requiring people to use these days, which cannot be fear-based, cannot be scarcity-based, has to be inspirational and I'm trying to think of the word aspirational, goal-based, right?
Yeah. It's funny. And my kids who are in their 20s now, if they see anything that's fear-based marketing or in any way manipulative, kids are savvy today. They think it's bullshit. They would never buy stuff that they felt, if they felt they were manipulated. And I think you're right. I think Facebook is having an impact, but I think the culture is shifting. I don't know, because I'm not in the marketing world as deeply as you are, and I'm sure fear-based still works. But you're right. I think there's a general shift. The squiggy sort of fear-based stuff is
depends on the psyche of the customer. But let's get to the third transformation, because when I happened to reconnect with you a few weeks ago, you mentioned something about a screenwriting contest, and you said with what you've learned from copywriting, it's happening faster. Could you talk about that?
Yes, and I actually have news on that. I'm a finalist. It was announced.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Right. So let me break this down as best I can. With copy, you can pretty much spot, as you do this more, you can pretty much spot slack copy pretty fast. right? If every, there's a field called semiotics, which was one of my fields at grad school, which is that everything has a packet of meaning. Words, pictures, everything, how you look, whatever. And so you're always looking for what's the meaning communicated. So I've become very spare in my writing so that every word communicates something. And it's kind of funny because it kind of came from writing dating profiles. It really did. It really came from studying it. I really studied how men and women communicate. And I hate extra words. I was trained as a journalist. And so every word has to have punch. So because I'm very sensitive to the fact that people don't like to read anymore, right? They're on videos. That my copy had better be really terse, those little 1 and 2 line paragraphs, which is really a long way from Middlemarch and Dostoevsky, but that's where we are. I'm very sensitive to people will click away if they get bored for a second.
Yeah, so, Tolstoy would not have been a good copywriter.
Would have been the worst copywriter. Whereas Twain would have been a good copywriter.
Yeah,
Hemingway would have been a great copywriter. But Tolstoy would be terrible. So when I wrote this new script, for example, first line, we're in it. It's a comedy. So first line has got to be sharp. And I was reading some of the other scripts, and people meander and they take their time and they think they have to. I don't believe that. So I have a principle that I teach dating writers, like dating profile writers, which is the same principle as a headline. You've got to grab people in the first second. Like I won't watch a movie if I miss the first scene. Yeah. Because to me, the first scene sets up everything. So that first line sets up everything. So the first line of my script, I believe, is one more apple pie and I'm going to vomit. Right?
I like it. Makes me laugh.
So this couple had just moved into this neighborhood and everyone's coming bringing apple pie, and then somebody brings magic mushrooms. And they're like, we like this neighborhood. Right? So there's no setup. It's like you can't waste time with people today. You have to grab them in that first instance. So that's definitely been one of the influences to make sure I grab the reader and I don't waste
See, I thought every screenwriter knew that, but obviously not.
They do, but they don't do it. Everyone knows that fiction is an art, screenwriting is a craft. It's like shaping a vase, and everything has to be necessary but surprising,
But you can do it a lot faster now. You have a lot of repetitive experiences in your wheelhouse to let you do that.
Yeah, and because I think I've written so much copy, and I'm always writing emails and every day and that kind of thing, that it's just become a fluency. So practice.
So how fast did you wrote an hour spec pilot and in the contest and a half hour one, right?
I wrote an hour and the half hour. Yeah, the half hour I wrote. Now the hour one, because we wrote it in 2.5 days, which is unheard of. People said that this has greatness in it, but the structure wasn't right. We spent too much time in one scene, and that was so we didn't make it to the finals. The other one I wrote in about 2 weeks, full.
And in the past, how long would it have taken?
In the deep past, it would have taken a month or more refining. But when you write every day and you read good copy, and I read good copy, right? I'm on the list of all the Justins and Chris's and all our good friends.
Yeah.
I'm always reading them and studying it. You can spot slackness very quickly.
Well, I was informed by our erstwhile producer that we're out of time.
Whoa.
So if people want to find out about your businesses, your men's groups, these different things, how do they find out? Where do they go?
Thank you. Facebook is great. Adam Gilad. There's a picture of me as Beast. I used to write X-Men for Fox TV. So my girlfriend is a designer and she did a picture of me as Beast. So look for that. Adam Gilad on Facebook, adamgilad@gmail.com. Like I said, we have this beautiful new training program for men to run circles to sort of raise the vibe of men and get them into action. I still do some dating profiles if people need rewriting. I'm not cheap, but I'm good and I'm effective. I just helped someone who barely has sight and had to recover from a medical accident and has speech impediment, and she has 5 dates in the first week and she had none.
No sight, but a great vision. So ADAMGILAD@gmail or on Facebook. Yeah.
On Facebook or gmail.com. And my last word of advice, if David Garfinkel tries to help you, listen to him. I think about how my life would be different if I had taken you up on that.
I think that's great advice. And one of these days I'm going to take it myself.
Yeah. No, really, thank you for that. And it is, when I look back at my life, other than selling my 20,000 shares of Oracle in 1987, those are probably my two biggest regrets.
Well, if you know, the thing about a lesson is if you learn it eventually, and look where you are now. I mean, I think you're okay.
Yeah, without Oracle stock. But other than that,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, think of how boring you'd be if you just had billions of dollars and didn't know what to do with your time.
it would be bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in real quick. Adam, thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you.
And just a personal point, I loved the X-Men cartoon on Fox Kids growing up.
Right?
So that just made me even more attached to you. I do have one question before we're out of here. You've mentioned the word Slack a couple of times when you were talking about copy. And I'd like you to kind of get into what you mean by that.
Filler words, words that have no punch. So filler words, obviously. So in training men, for example, on how to communicate with confidence, you take away phrases like a little bit of, kind of, sort of, that kind of thing. Anything that diminishes the punch of your language. Also, words that just have no specific meaning. Notice I jumped on, David, sorry about that, for using the word masculine.
It's okay.
There are words that people have their own, there's no specificity to it. Let me throw one last sort of zinger at you, okay? This is useful for everybody. Galway Canal, we did Beowulf. The difference between Germanic, Anglo-Saxon words and Latinate words. Yeah, do you teach that too? Latinate words are very beautiful and you write to women, it's fantastic. Anglo-Saxon words, things like death, punch, hit, gut, felch, like all these amazing words have power to them. So when you're copywriting, depending on your audience and the mood you want to create, what's the music you want to create? Do you want to use mellifluous and beautiful and, stentorian and all these kind of beautiful Latinate words, or do you want punch, gut, hit, fence, bull, right? It's a different kind of language. So, and one more thing for you, Nathan, I also wrote Gargoyles, which I'm sure you also were watching back then. So that's my favorite.
Gargoyles taught me about the Illuminati.
Wow, it kept me in my house. So.
Well, thank you so much. Again, one more time before we're out of here, where can people go if they want to check out more of your work?
Yeah, write to me, adamgilad.com. Check me out online, adamgilad.com. I'm redoing that whole site, by the way. But join my Bold Life Tribe on Facebook, or just connect with me on Facebook is a great place. The Bold Life Brotherhood is the men's organization I've been talking about. So the boldlifebrotherhood.com.
Awesome. David, you promised a phenomenal guest and totally delivered, man.
Yeah, well, I have Adam to thank. So thank you, Adam.
Thank you, David. This has been really fun. I hope it was helpful.
That was great. It was awesome.
All right. Until next time, check out the Copywriters Podcast website over at copywriterspodcast.com, and we'll catch you later.
See you later.